Thank you all for being here. Several months ago, I asked a group of housing professionals, advocates, nonprofit and faith leaders, elected officials, our city staff, to come together around one of the most significant challenges facing our community, ensuring that the people who make Frederick a great place to live can also afford to call it their home. Today, I'm thrilled to share the final report of the Mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force. I want to begin by thanking every member of the task force, many of whom are in the room and will be acknowledged a little bit later, our city staff who contributed their time and expertise to this work. In a few moments, Stuart Campbell, our Director of Housing and Human Services, will speak in greater detail about the work of the task force and the recommendations contained in this report. But before we talk about where we go from here, it is important to understand the breadth of the challenge before us. Across America, the median age of a first-time homebuyer has reached 40 years old, the highest ever recorded. I was talking to a member of my team earlier, and I bought my first house, I say when I was 27 because it was in 1993, but I was actually only 26 at the time. It was a modest home. It was a townhouse in Brunswick. It was the first house that my wife and I could afford to live in on our salaries at the time. But we were in Frederick County, and we owned a piece of real estate, and we had a place to begin a family, and that is something that many young people dream about the opportunity to have, and I don't take for granted that I was able to do that when I was 26 years old. So when I think about a median age of 40 now, it's really kind of jarring. For generations, owning a home has been one of the fundamental building blocks of the American dream. You worked hard, you saved, you bought a home, you put down roots, you built equity and created greater stability and opportunity for the next generation. It remains the greatest opportunity for generational wealth that exists in this country. And today, that path has become narrower, longer, and increasingly out of reach for too many people. And we go through phases, but we shouldn't accept that this is just a phase. We should not accept that it is inevitable that this is going to happen. When it happens, we have a responsibility to act. The American dream has always depended on the belief that the next generation can build a better life than the generation that came before it. And housing is fundamental to keeping that promise alive. The city of Frederick cannot solve a national housing crisis. We cannot do it on our own. But we do have a responsibility to confront the things that are within our control. And that is why I created this task force. I did not ask them to produce another report that would sit on a shelf. I asked them to be ambitious. I asked them to be candid. And I asked them to give us recommendations that could lead to meaningful action. And they have done exactly that. And now I'd like to turn things over to Stuart Campbell, our Director of the city's Department of Housing and Human Services, to talk more about the work of the task force and the recommendations before us today. Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor, and thank you to everyone for being here. I'm pleased that we are today releasing the final report and recommendations from the Mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force, Opening Doors in Frederick, an action agenda for affordable housing. Before speaking to the substance of the report, I want to recognize the people who put it together and the seriousness they brought to this work. Can I ask the members of the task force to please stand for a moment and be recognized? Thank you. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. Appreciate it. The task force convened in mid-March and continued its work through its final session in mid-May, with the task force and ultimately its work groups meeting weekly over 8 weeks of sustained hands-on effort. This was a focus and substantive process. The task force brought together housing professionals, nonprofit leaders, faith leaders, housing advocates, elected officials, and city staff from multiple departments. Collectively, the members brought a remarkable 371 years of housing-related experience to the table and collectively volunteered 225 hours of their time, work that would have been valued at close to $50,000 because they care deeply about this community. City staff across public works, planning, economic development, housing and human services, legal, and the City Council also contributed more than 100 hours supporting the effort. What stood out to me was that this was more than a professional exercise for the members of the task force. It was work they approached with real care, urgency, and commitment to the future of Frederick. And I want to personally and professionally thank them for that. I also want to specifically recognize Jody Ostich, the city's housing policy advisor, who helped spearhead this effort on behalf of the city. Her leadership, organization, and steady support helped guide the task force work from a broad charge into a thoughtful and actionable set of recommendations. This work, thank you. This work builds on the county-wide housing needs assessment, which identified a need for nearly 13,800 new housing units in the city of Frederick by the year 2035. That number represents real people, families who are cost-burdened, workers who cannot live near their jobs, older adults who are trying to remain in the community that they help build, young adults starting out, people with disabilities, and households who are already part of Frederick but are struggling to find stability here. It is important to note that the affordable housing is not a standalone issue. It is connected to our workforce, our schools, our economic development, transportation, public health, and the overall character of the city. Frederick is a successful and growing city, but with that success comes pressure. If we do not continue working to expand housing opportunities, we risk becoming a community that more and more people love, but fewer and fewer people can afford to call home. What I appreciate about this report is that it does not treat affordable housing as a simple problem with a single solution. The recommendations are organized around 4 areas that the task force identified: land, fees and funding, policy and process, and communication. Those are all areas that directly affect whether affordable housing can be created, preserved, and sustained in Frederick. The report recognizes that housing affordability is affected by many connected factors: land availability, development costs, review timelines, infrastructure, funding, zoning, staffing capacity, and public understanding. It also recognizes that we have control over a limited number of factors that impact affordable housing and zeroes in on the ones that we can control. What also stands out is the level of rigor. The recommendations include proposed lead departments, implementation steps, timelines, stakeholders, and most importantly, ways to measure progress. The task force has also looked outward, researching approaches used in other communities facing similar housing pressures. That kind of comprehensive approach is important. If Frederick is going to make meaningful progress, we must look at the full system, not just one program, one funding source, or one policy at a time. These recommendations are serious, well-organized, and worthy of careful consideration. The next step is to carefully review the recommendations and determine how best to move forward. That review will include City Department, the Mayor's Office, City Council, and the broader community as we look at feasibility, sequencing, cost, and implementation. Some recommendations may be more readily actionable. Others may require additional analysis, community discussion, coordination across departments, or formal action by the City Council. Where recommendations are feasible, practical, and aligned with the city's goals, we should be prepared to move forward with urgency. The need is real, and the community expects thoughtful action. Again, my sincere thanks to every task force member and every staff member who contributed their time and expertise to get us here. This report gives Frederick a strong, credible foundation for the next phase of the work and helps focus the conversation on what it will take to expand affordable housing opportunities in our city. This is difficult work, but it is necessary work. I look forward to help moving it forward in a thoughtful, responsible, and collaborative way. At this time, I would like to welcome Danny Adams, Executive Officer of the Frederick County Building Industry Association, to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor, Director Campbell, for your comments and remarks. I would like to echo those things as well. On behalf of the Frederick County Building Industry Association, we are grateful for the opportunity to have participated in a meaningful and intentional way of bringing solutions to the table to address the need for housing in the city of Frederick. Thank you to the amazing team led by Jody Osich. I'd like to echo that. I've known Jody for quite some time and appreciate her expertise. The American dream of housing and opportunities for all is a human dignity. Identifying those barriers to attain housing was a significant driver in this task force. We look to understand the challenges from our young adults finding a place to live to our senior community aging in place or downsizing from the burdens of maintaining a property. When the average age, as the mayor had shared, was 40 years old, we should be concerned to see that there will be a period of time that individuals and families will not be building generational wealth. This should deeply concern us. A primary barrier that we identified was the price of a single home to own or rental property to build. At the starting gate, if a cost for regulations, zoning, development, engineering, impact fees, and more average $131,000, now add the cost of land, materials to build that property, like a townhome or condominium, you're looking at a sticker price of a minimum of $390,000 before a builder ever puts their profit on that property. This is a 77% increase from just 10 years ago. FCBIA supports the task force efforts to tackle these critical solutions. It will take a concerted effort from the leadership to prioritize the policies that can give dignity of housing to our community. You're seeing this today from the mayor and his administration. On a personal note, I've had the good fortune of having my formative years in Hillcrest Orchards, and I still have some of my family currently living off the Golden Mile. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be a greater influence for the greater good of this community. And I'd like to welcome back Mayor O'Connor to wrap this up. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart and Danny, for your remarks and for your commitment to the city of Frederick. As both Stuart and Danny have outlined, this report gives us a serious and comprehensive set of recommendations for addressing one of the most significant challenges facing our community. We've not gone into depth today on what those recommendations are. The report is over on the table for you to read. No one wanted to sit here today while we read you a multi-page report. But that responsibility does now shift to us. And in the coming months, this administration will begin advancing opportunities to make city-owned land available for affordable housing development through competitive requests for proposals. We will bring forward policy and legislative proposals for consideration by the Frederick City Council. I want to thank the members of the City Council who are in the room with us today. Councilmember Peter Brehm, Councilmember Sarah Hempel-Arani, and Councilmember Derek Shackelford. Councilmember Shackelford and Councilmember Brehm were regular participants in the task force meetings over the course of those 8 weeks. We will examine how we can improve coordination across city departments and make our development review processes more efficient and predictable. And we will continue evaluating how the city invests in affordable housing and leverages our resources to attract greater private, state, and federal investment. Some of this work can begin immediately. Some is already underway. Single room occupancy, for example, is on an upcoming agenda to be reviewed by the City Council within the next week. Some will require public discussion and partnership with the City Council to move those forward through the legislative process. And some of the decisions ahead will be difficult. We will have to reconsider policies that have existed for years. We will have to examine whether our zoning laws and development processes are helping us meet the needs of our community today. We will have to make choices about public land, about public resources, and about public investment. There will be disagreements along the way. There will be difficult conversations about growth and about density and about investment and about change. And that is the work that we have been elected to do, and that is the work that we have hired our staff to help us do. Because it is easy to support affordable housing as a goal. I haven't met anybody yet who isn't for it. The challenge, however, is translating that shared goal into policies and decisions necessary to actually create more housing that is affordable to more people. So the question is not whether every recommendation in this report will be adopted exactly as written. The question is whether we are willing to seriously examine the choices before us and act with the urgency that the challenge demands. I believe that we are. Frederick is a successful and growing community. People want to live here. They want to work here. They want to raise their families here. They want to build their lives in this community. And our responsibility is to make sure that opportunity remains available to the generations that follow us. This report gives us a path forward. It gives us the responsibility to act. Because the measure of our commitment to housing will not ultimately be the report that we publish or the plans that we adopt. It will be the homes that are built, the barriers that have been removed to ownership, and the people who will have an opportunity to build their lives and to contribute to the future of Frederick. The full report and the recommendations of the Mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force are available at frederickmd.gov/housing task force. Thank you all for being here today. It's time to go to work. Thank you.